Punching Nazis is always the right thing to do. Look out, young Republican group chats. It's day 126 out of 365. Today's movie, Captain America, the First Avenger. If you love the MCU or movies in general, Ticket Stub Movie Club has something for you. Go to patreon.com/ticketstubmovieclub or discover more with the link in my profile. Directed by Joe Johnston and starring Chris Evans, Hayley Atwell, and Sebastian Stan, it is time to punch some motherfucking Nazis. I love any chance I get to talk about beating the stuffing out of fascists, so imagine my surprise when I saw this one pop up in the list. I'd forgotten I had even seen it in theaters, if I'm being honest, but I've seen everything from the MCU in theaters, so it kind of makes sense. Thor had come out earlier this year, so I was obviously primed to be excited for it. Honestly, this was a great time to be a comic book fan. These movies still felt niche. There was still an experimental nature. We were questioning if we'd ever be able to get away with this and get all the way to Avengers, and this was the lead up into that. This is as close as we would get before we could find out, was this experiment gonna work at all or not? I still remember people saying, I don't wanna watch 4 movies for the Avengers to make sense. Like, that was something people were legitimately saying as if there was any way that this couldn't work. Here in 2025, we know that things work out in a good way. It comes to Endgame, and now we have Doomsday right around the corner. So it's cool to look back at this time when it was niche and weird. People were still getting beat up for liking comic books and superheroes. People were still waiting for this MCU house of cards to topple and to stop working at a certain point, and it just never did. There's only 5 movies in this phase overall, as compared to the 5 movies we still have left in phase 6 right now. That's right, these phases are 2 to 3 times longer now, just because of this test factory that was phase 1. Honestly, everything after Endgame has felt like having our cake and eating it too. And here in 2025, getting to rewatch Captain America, that's what I feel like as well. This is my cake and eating it. This is such a neat movie. And I feel like people skip over it and didn't know what to like about it, or maybe some of the references weren't being understood. So let's jump into the 3 things that I love about Captain America, the First Avenger. The first thing that I really love about this movie are its influences. This director, Joe Johnston, is kind of the pioneer of the superhero genre. He directed The Rocketeer in 1991, the year I was born, making it 34 years old. That movie is the prototype for the modern superhero film. I'm not crazy. Go back and check that one out. It covers all the beats of these movies that we learn to love while doing a very send-up kind of thing to the 1950s. And it was that 1950s era that also inspired Indiana Jones. Now, Indiana Jones and its love is on full display in this movie. It's not just the punching Nazi stuff, which I am here for, but there are so many references across the film to Indiana Jones that just make this so much fun to watch. Joe Johnston really understood the assignment. This is a superhero movie, but it's also a wartime movie and feels a little more like Indiana Jones. This guy has directed a bunch of the stuff that you love from your childhood as well. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was his first movie. Think about that, coming out the gate that fucking strong, his follow-up being The Rocketeer, inventing the superhero genre, and then getting all the way into the MCU and understanding that he's launching the hero of the MCU. That's right, the second thing that I love about this movie is that it introduces the hero of the MCU. Now, wait a second, Seth. Wait a second. Tony Stark is the hero of the MCU. And to that I say, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Because this movie is retroactively made better through Endgame, and Tony Stark himself doesn't want to be the hero of the MCU. He wants to start it, he wants all the glory, absolutely, but he doesn't want to be front and center, and that actually comes to light in the Avengers. Now, we'll talk about that when we get to that movie, but for my thesis here, Captain America is our POV character. He is a man displaced from time, and so this movie is to set all of that up. It's to show us what kind of a person he is. And I love the scene that he has with Stanley Tucci that sets him up as just being a good man. That's not Tony Stark, sorry. He's an awesome character, he's a wonderful protagonist, and honestly, he's the biggest charm of the MCU, but he's not the main central character. We follow Captain America's through line of where evil kind of started in America through the Nazi movement, how that turned into Hydra and eventually bleeds into Winter Soldier. We follow that all the way down to Civil War, where we're still feeling the effects of Hydra through what they did to Bucky and how that affects Tony Stark who's the antagonist of that movie. He's an understandable antagonist, something that the MCU is fantastic at. And yes, I know Zemo's the technical villain of that movie, but if we follow Captain America all the way through to the very end, when we hit Endgame and we find out that he's lived back through this timeline twice. Think about it. In Endgame, we see him time travel back to put the stones back, and then he ends up with Agent Carter. That retroactively makes Winter Soldier even better. When the two characters are reintroduced to each other, we're seeing the Captain America that hasn't been back through that timeline. She got to end up with him. She knows him. She lived happily ever after. And so now she gets to see a young version of him one last time before she dies. It makes that scene even better. By the time we get to Endgame and that ends with his first dance with Peggy, that's all set up in this movie. That dance with Peggy is the culmination of his love story that starts in this movie. Endgame ends his story from this movie. It also ends Iron Man's story, and there's lots of arguments to be made here. It's such a big franchise, but I feel personally Cap is the center of it. He is the protagonist of the MCU, and this is his origin story. The third thing that I love about this movie is that it's full of little moments. Let me bring the gas down from my last point. I'm sure I upset some people saying that Tony Stark is not the main character of the MCU. I understand. Let me defend this movie instead with its little moments. I already mentioned the one between Chris Evans and Stanley Tucci the night before he becomes Captain America. I mean, he's always been Captain America. That's the point of the movie. But the night before his procedure, they have this beautiful little moment together, and there's lots of those little moments. When Stanley Tucci's character dies in the next scene, he points at Cap's chest. That's it. No monologue, no final words, just a reminder of who he is. Towards the end of the movie, before he jumps onto the plane, he gets his kiss from his girl and then turns to Tommy Lee Jones, who says, "I'm not gonna kiss you." Those little moments are the ones that are really missing, I think, from the MCU. You have this fantastic cast that's delivering with a really well-respected director that's making everyone bring their A game. And that A game is exactly what you need in a prequel story like this. And the movie's scattered with these kind of moments. Some of them are played up, like Cap diving on the grenade to save his squad that ends up being a dud. But then some of them are just really, really minor and little. Things like Captain America drawing a dancing circus monkey to describe the way he feels in that scene. The emotional journey of Captain America is really on display in this movie. It's something I hadn't clocked the first time or even the second time I watched it, but here on like the fifth or sixth revisit, there's an emotional story to the entire movie, and that's what Johnston is really fucking good at. His movies carry that kind of 90s feel through them because that's the era he grew as a filmmaker through. But what do you think? Are you a fan of The First Avenger? I feel like nobody talks about this movie, even though it ends up being one of my favorites just because it's about punching Nazis. After this movie, we're officially done with superheroes for 2011, so let's switch over to rom-coms and talk about my favorite rom-com of all time, Crazy Stupid Love. And I'll see you tomorrow.